All right. Thank you so much for coming and for not going to have coffee. I am Stas. I work for Mozilla. I'm really glad to be here today and have this opportunity to talk to you about Firefox OS and, in particular, something that I focus on, which is localization and translation technology. Is this visible? Like, does this work? Do you guys see what's going on? People back there, even, okay, that's great, thanks. All right, so let's just jump in. Firefox OS, mobile operating system from Mozilla. It's been around for about 2 years now. We launched last year. Has been pretty successful so far. It's a mobile operating system that's written entirely using web technologies, so everything is HTML, JavaScript, and CSS, and that means that there are no native apps, or to put it differently, any web page can be in fact considered a native app for Firefox OS. But I'm not going to talk about this too much. What I wanted to focus on today is DevTools and in general tools that we use to help develop apps for Firefox OS, and in particular I wanted to focus on how we can leverage these DevTools to create better localization and better translations. So a quick show of hands, that's going to be really easy. How many of you speak more than one language? Okay, cool. So a lot of hands in the air, obviously. Well done. You probably already interacted with localized software, even if you didn't notice it. You might have used something that's translated or not. The thing with localization is that it's really hard to. It's a hard task because if it works well, people usually don't notice it, and that's the criterion of success. And at Mozilla, we have all these amazing volunteers who work with us to localize Firefox and Firefox OS. It's a lot of work. Firefox is around 40,000 words. Firefox OS is another 16,000. And there is more than 100 languages that we ship in. So all these people give their free time to localize these products, and we're trying to make it easier for them to do so. And now, what I'm really excited about and I find fascinating is that we can use these existing DevTools, and we can use the fact that Firefox OS is written in web technologies, and help these not so technical people to provide feedback and to work with translations. So what I want to do is really quickly show you an example of this in action. And what I have here is my reference device called Flame, which is pretty nice. It's running current master branch of Firefox OS, and what I'm going to show is how to debug applications live and how this can be applied to localization. So does this work as well? Cool. All right, so what I'm going to be doing is I'm going to launch something we call Web IDE. It's available in, I think, Firefox Beta at this point. I'm just going to move it over to here. And I'm also, just make sure you can see this. OK, cool. What I can do is first select runtime. So I'm going to select my connected device. I'm going to allow it to connect. And I'm going to launch one of the applications. In this case, it's going to be settings. I can flick my finger here and see, or actually, let me do this. I can select things with my debugger on the right in my browser on my desktop computer, and I can point my finger here, and it's going to select the proper HTML node for me to debug. So let's say, let me change this to French real quick for the sake of the example. Let's say I'm a localizer. I don't really know much about JavaScript or HTML, but I've heard about these DevTools, and I've heard they're pretty easy to use. I connected my phone, and I see these translations here. And I'm like, you know what? This title over here already says I'm in the settings app. It says paramètres. So maybe it's not really needed to have paramètres des appels in here. Maybe just appel would be enough, or maybe messages or message would be a similar good modification. So I'm going to select this node again. It's really easy if it works. And some HTML knowledge would be required, but my point is, this could be done by even someone who doesn't really understand how these things work. So now you can see this refresh live, and what's really cool is that you can take a screenshot using, again, your laptop right here, and it's going to open in my Firefox instance over here, and I can send this with my suggested edit to the localization maintainer. That's just one use case, right? Let me try to do it again using a different app. So I opened the browser app using my web IDE on my device, on my laptop, and again I'm in French language, and you can see in here that one of these tabs should say bookmarks, but the French translation didn't fit in. That's one of the very common problems in mobile localization. I'm going to talk about it in a moment. So localizer could try to find a shorter translation, but that's very hard in this case because it's hard to generally just find words that fit in. So what they should really do is file a bug with the developer of the app and say, this should probably expand so that we can accommodate longer strings. And in fact, such bug was filed. It wasn't fixed because we changed the browser app, and now it looks something like this. So we kind of worked around the problem, and there are no bookmarks in here. Bookmarks is a separate app in Firefox OS. All right, so that was just a quick demo. What I want to talk about next is just generally what are the challenges that we face in localization of mobile operating systems or mobile apps. So, small screens, right? A lot of times, the screen estate is limited. English is beautifully expressive and very short. You can create constructs by putting nouns together, and it works really well. Not all languages do that. And some languages also just use longer words on average, or maybe use fonts or characters that are wider than Latin. So in these cases, it's a problem that's hard to avoid. And one example that I really like, and I really regret I don't have a picture of this, but my dad used to have this old Android device, and I remember there was this text that would show up on your screen when you held your finger on the screen. And it's in English it says something like that: hold and drag to rearrange or delete. And it fit into 2 lines. That was pretty good, right? And the Polish version of that looked something like that, which probably took me like 30 seconds to decipher. Like, this is really weird. The abbreviations go, like, they remove 70% of the words, and it's really hard to understand. Curiously, they fit it into 1 line. That means someone actually tested it and probably approved it and said, that's probably good. Well, it wasn't. So I don't have no one actually has a perfect solution for this problem, but the point is, it should be easy for people to test it, file bugs, and give feedback on such cases. Another problem that's really common is that a lot of, or all the variety of the devices that we want to ship at. So currently we ship at phones, we have a tablet on the way, and we also want to ship on TVs, and we want the translations to be context aware. So we don't want to be saying, turn off your phone when it's used on TV, etc., etc. And this is much more common in the mobile world than on desktops, I imagine. And yet another problem that we faced is local coverage. So it's really easy to design these localization systems when you only have like 2 languages or 3 languages, or your company just wants to support 16 languages or something. At Mozilla, we really try to be as inclusive as possible. There was a really cool piece in The Economist yesterday, I recommend it, about small languages that have better chance of surviving thanks to open source projects because they're not driven by profit, but by passion. Pretty inspiring stuff. So we started with Firefox, we started with around 10 locales or languages. Right now we have 70. And we found out that just shipping so many translations on a device, especially if the device is a very low-end phone that's supposed to retail for $25, is a challenge, because you only have so much space available on the device. You only have 128 megs of RAM, and you only have a single core, 800 megahertz CPU. That's unheard of in the mobile world these days. A short story that I found pretty interesting. This is sort of what our API looks like. So you just put additional attributes on an HTML element, and we take care of the rest. But this translation, netcon, needs to come from somewhere. So we can download the file, we can fetch the file from the disk, we can read it, but that takes time. And we were afraid, and we had numbers that suggested that file I/O was very costly on these cheap phones. So we came up with this optimization. We serialized the file and we embedded a JSON into the HTML. And we only put translations that were needed for the user to see the translated app the moment when they launched it. So it wasn't even all translations that were out there. And that worked really well until we started to ship this with 70 languages. It turned out that just the amount of translations that we were putting into HTML was slowing us down. It was slowing DOM parsing, and it was increasing the memory usage, of course. And at some point, it was just cheaper and faster to actually do the I/O and read the file as it normally should have been done. Okay, and one last point I wanted to make before I go into the live coding thingy, I hope that works, is something called pseudo-localization. So I talked about how we can help translators to test their software or test their translations. What I'm really interested at, and that's sort of what I do at Mozilla, is helping developers write better code. And pseudo-locales or pseudo-languages are a tool to do just that. So let me show you an example of a pseudo-language. Pseudo-languages are automatically generated from the current default language. In this case, it's English. And they have really simple heuristics that transform, where's the language panel? Over here. That transform the English translations. Oh, you can't see anything. That transform English translations into something that kind of looks like English, but is not. So in this example, what you're seeing is the accented English being selected. And now the entire settings app is available in this weird language that serves two purposes. One is, or three purposes. One is make sure the weird characters and Unicode glyphs are rendered properly. The other one is to make sure all these messages in the UI are actually localizable so that they can be localized, because this is done by the same API. And also we added this tiny detail of a heuristic which doubles every vowel in each word, which makes all the words longer, sort of simulating languages like French or Italian, which tend to have longer strings. Okay, so what I'm going to do now, and hopefully it works, I just wanted to show you how easy it is to create the pseudo-locale. So I'm going to create a new one, and I'm going to flash it on my device, fingers crossed. And after that, I'm just going to wrap up. So hang in tight. All right. Back over to this mic. So this is the code of the localization library in Firefox OS. It defines two pseudo-locales. One is the one that you just saw, which is accented English, and the other one is mirrored English. I'm going to talk about it in a second. Pseudo-locales are created in a very simple manner. There are two functions that they're composed. One function takes care of substituting characters, and the other function takes entire words and makes additional transformations on words. So what I'm going to do is define a new language here. I'm going to call it lead speak. And what I can do also, for your viewing pleasure, is this. Okay, so I'm going to have a lead speak. Language code for this one is going to be QPS lead. And I'm going to need a map of characters for my first function. I'm going to call that lead map. And I'm going to have a make lead function that will lead, we're going to take words and we'll apply additional transformations to these words, like adding things like XOR or other coolness. All right, so let's go back here. Let's create that map. What I want is to replace all A's with fours. A, B, C, D, all E's with threes, all F's with PH, GH, I's with ones, L's with ones maybe as well, O's with 0, and maybe like S with fives, and T's with 7. Let's just keep it simple. All right, so that's my map, and I also want that make lead function, right? Oh, no. So, takes a value. Just going to copy that. It uses words. There's a match. Okay, so now what I want to do is replace certain suffixes with lead speak versions of them, and this is not really the proper way of doing lexical tokenization, so don't do that at home, but I'm just going to do this for the purpose of this presentation. I'm going to take the match and split it on a regex that I'm just going to write in a second. More themes. Okay, and then I'm going to have a simple switch on the suffix part. Let's see if that works. Looking pretty good. The default is to just return the stem. Otherwise, I'm not doing on time, good. And otherwise, if it's ER, let's return stem plus XOR. And you know what? I'm just going to keep it this simple because I don't want to make this any longer. All right, so the only thing I need is my regex here. It's really easy. I think I'm just going to do the ER things. I'm going to put it in parentheses to capture the group, and I want them at the end of the words. Okay. Does this look good? I'm sorry? Oh, rewords are simple regex over here, so we got this covered. Okay, let's try to flash it, and we'll see if it works or not. In the meantime, what I'd like to show you is the other mirror English locale, which I have on my tablet. And this one is pretty cool because, let's see if it works over here. All right, almost, sort of, somehow, maybe. Okay, I'm gonna go into settings, change my language into mirrored English over here, and hit OK. And what this is again, English words that are just being transformed by Unicode formatting marks so that the Unicode bidirectional algorithm forces them to be right to left. So think Arabic, Persian, Hebrew, and a bunch of others, but written in something that looks kind of like English. So if anyone makes a prank on you and changes to mirrored English, you can actually read that, because it uses flipped characters, and if you turn the device around, you can clearly see, account management, themes, keyboards, etc., etc. So that's really cool, and that has helped us a lot in debugging Firefox OS in RTL. We're supposed to be launching in Egypt and a couple of other countries soon. And I'm really happy about this, because we are actually one of the operating systems that has the best RTL support for these markets. So that's really cool. Let's see how our flashing went. Okay, it did not blow up. So let me see. Let me go into settings. Let me change my language to, please, delete speak, which is over here. All right, and all right, cool. So it's Saturday, September 27th today, and the entire system is localized into lead speak language, which was really cool, and just a couple of lines worth of a patch. And yeah, that's pretty much it. I just wanted to show it to you guys to inspire you to make use of use tools in an unorthodox manner. Try to think of applications that are maybe beyond simple JS debugging, and also please consider localization next time you develop your app. You can, if you're developing for Firefox OS, feel free to use pseudo locales or pseudo languages to help. And that is it. I'm just kidding. Thank you.